Nobody and nothing will affect you again. Welcome to Buddhist Motivation. Today, we're diving into a powerful concept that could completely transform the way you live your life. Nobody and nothing will affect you again. In a world that's constantly throwing challenges, insults, and setbacks our way, it can often feel like we are at the mercy of external forces. But what if I told you that there's a way to stay unshaken no matter what happens? No matter how life challenges you. What if you could remain calm, peaceful, and unaffected? This idea isn't just some philosophical notion. It's a mindset that can be cultivated through self-awareness, emotional mastery, and a deeper understanding of who we are. By mastering our reactions to the world, we gain the ability to navigate through life with a sense of peace and freedom. Before we get into the heart of this powerful story, please take a moment to help support this channel by hitting that like button and subscribing if you haven't already. It's the best way to ensure that you never miss out on future videos that can help you grow spiritually and emotionally. Also, leave your thoughts in the comments below. I truly appreciate your insights, and they motivate me to keep creating more content that can add value to your journey. Now, let's explore how you can master yourself and stop letting external circumstances control your inner peace. 1. The unseen forces within us. Each of us has automatic reactions to the events that occur in our lives. These might include feeling anger when someone cuts you off while driving, or feeling disappointment when your efforts go unrecognized. These emotions often come so quickly that we feel they are just a natural part of life. However, the truth is that these are simply reactions that we haven't fully understood or dealt with. Carl Jung, one of the most prominent figures in psychology, once said, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate." This statement is crucial because it highlights that most of our emotional reactions and behaviors are not natural or necessary. They are reflections of the deeper parts of ourselves that we have yet to acknowledge. So, how do we address these reactions proactively? To address this, we need to start seeing our emotions as messages. Each time you feel anger, frustration, or fear, it isn't because the world has wronged you, but because there is something within you that remains unresolved. Jung refers to this as the shadow self, the parts of our psyche that we reject or are unaware of, often out of fear or shame. These parts don't disappear. They remain dormant until they find an opportunity to manifest. For example, if someone calls you stupid and you feel anger, this anger isn't the result of the insult itself. The anger comes from the fear inside you that, perhaps, the insult might be true. You feel threatened because a part of you may harbor doubts about your abilities. This is the moment to pause and ask, why am I reacting this way? Instead of blaming others, you must look inward to identify those parts of yourself that still need healing. Jung didn't just suggest that we confront our unresolved inner issues. He emphasized that the world outside of you is a reflection of your inner world. When you realize that every challenging situation, every setback, is actually an opportunity for you to confront your deepest fears, you will stop being controlled by the external world. In Buddhism, there is a crucial concept tied to understanding our reactions to the outside world: non-attachment and impermanence. Buddhism teaches that attachment to things, whether material possessions, desires, or even ideas, is the root cause of suffering. When we cling to certain outcomes, seek external validation, or try to control others, we are setting ourselves up for pain and disappointment. This attachment makes us vulnerable to frustration and sorrow when things don't go as expected. We overreact to minor inconveniences, criticisms, or when things fail to unfold as we planned. So, how can we break this cycle and stop letting these external reactions govern us? Buddhism suggests practices like meditation and mindfulness. These aren't just tools for calming the mind. They are methods for understanding our emotions as they arise. When you meditate, you start to observe your emotions without judgment. You'll realize that these emotions are not your essence, they are temporary reactions. And you have the power to choose how to respond. Think of the story of the Buddha and Devadatta. Devadatta, an envious relative of the Buddha, tried repeatedly to harm him. Despite this, the Buddha remained calm and unaffected by his actions. When others expected the Buddha to retaliate, he responded with compassion, understanding that Devadatta's actions came from his own ignorance and suffering. This story teaches us that emotional mastery isn't about suppressing feelings, but about observing them and making a conscious decision to remain peaceful, regardless of the external circumstances. When you let go of the need to control outcomes, you stop being vulnerable to disappointment and can start living more peacefully. To the mirror of life. As we've seen, our reactions to life's events are not always the result of the actual events themselves. In fact, as Jung pointed out, the external world is merely a mirror reflecting back to us the things we have yet to address within ourselves. When we are not fully aware of who we are, we perceive the world in a distorted way, often projecting our unresolved issues onto others and situations. Why do some people rise after failure while others spiral into despair? This question is at the heart of understanding the difference in how people perceive the world. For those who cannot handle failure, the world is a place full of difficulty and injustice. However, for those who understand that failure is simply part of the process, it becomes an opportunity for growth. They see challenges as stepping stones toward personal development. There's a story in Buddhism that beautifully illustrates this concept. The story of Sariputta, one of the Buddha's most esteemed disciples. On one occasion, Sariputta was harshly criticized by someone, but he remained unfazed. When asked by his companions why he didn't respond to the insults, he simply smiled and said, "These words are not mine. They belong to the one who spoke them. I will not let them affect me." This is a wonderful example of detachment in action. Sariputta knew that the criticism wasn't an attack on his character, but simply an expression of the speaker's own issues. Instead of reacting, he observed the situation with clarity and compassion. From this, we learn a crucial lesson. How we perceive the world shapes how the world appears to us. When you shift your perspective, you will begin to see life differently. It's like looking into a mirror. If you smile at it, it smiles back at you. But if you frown, it reflects your frown. Similarly, the world reflects the inner state of our minds. 3. The illusion of control. In life, many of us are conditioned to believe that we can control everything. How people perceive us, how situations unfold, and even how we feel. We think that if we can just manage these external factors, we'll feel safe, secure, and in control. However, the truth is that control is an illusion. Take a moment to think about how much energy you've spent trying to control situations that were ultimately out of your hands. You may have tried to control how your friends or colleagues view you, how your relationships unfold, or even how your career progresses. But no matter how hard you try, life will never conform to your exact expectations. Carl Jung's theory highlights this truth. You cannot control the external world, but you can control how you perceive and react to it. This is where real freedom lies, not in controlling other people or circumstances, but in letting go of the need for control and learning to flow with life as it is. The Buddhist concept of letting go is fundamental here. The Buddha taught that attachment is the root cause of suffering. When we are attached to a specific outcome, whether it's a career goal, a relationship, or even our idea of how life should be, we are setting ourselves up for frustration when things don't go according to plan. Buddhism's practice of non-attachment doesn't mean detachment or indifference. It means being fully present in the moment without clinging to a particular outcome. The idea is to engage with life fully, but without the desperate need to control or manipulate the results. Imagine that you've worked hard for a promotion at work, but someone else gets the job instead. The natural human reaction might be anger, disappointment, or even a sense of failure. But what if you could step back and ask yourself, why do I feel this way? Why do I need this particular promotion to feel validated? When you realize that your happiness and peace are tied to the outcome, you liberate yourself from the illusion of control and free yourself from unnecessary suffering. This is the heart of Buddhist mindfulness. Accepting what comes and letting go of the need for specific results. It is about finding peace in the present moment, no matter what the external world presents to you. The paradox of control. Ironically, when we stop trying to control everything, things often fall into place more effortlessly. Consider how many times in your life you've stressed over an outcome, only for it to happen in a way you never expected. Sometimes, when we stop chasing something so desperately, it comes to us naturally. This paradox is captured beautifully by the Buddhist concept of Wu Wei from Taoism, which translates to effortless action. It suggests that when we align ourselves with the flow of life, without force or resistance, things tend to unfold in a way that feels much more organic and peaceful. This doesn't mean we stop working hard or setting goals, but rather that we stop clinging to a rigid idea of how things should happen. In practice, this means embracing uncertainty. Instead of fearing that life will not go your way, you learn to trust that everything is unfolding as it should. By doing so, you stop expending mental energy on trying to control people and circumstances, and you allow yourself to flow with the natural rhythm of life. For emotional mastery, the power of observing your emotions. When we talk about emotional mastery, it's easy to assume that it means suppressing or avoiding emotions. However, emotional mastery isn't about not feeling, it's about how we respond to our emotions. Emotions, by their nature, are temporary. They arise, peak, and then dissipate. However, most of us react impulsively to our emotions, as if they are a permanent part of who we are. This is where mindfulness comes into play. Instead of reacting automatically to emotions like anger, sadness, or fear, mindfulness teaches us to pause, observe, and create a space between the emotion and the reaction. Imagine this scenario. You're at work, and a colleague makes a cutting remark about your abilities. The immediate impulse might be to get defensive, argue back, or feel hurt. But with emotional mastery, you would recognize the emotion rising within you, noticing how your body tightens, how your mind races. Instead of reacting, you pause. You observe the emotion without judgment. You might even ask yourself, why am I feeling hurt right now? What part of me needs validation from others? This space of awareness gives you the opportunity to choose a different response. You can decide to respond with calm, or even compassion, instead of being consumed by the emotion. This practice of detachment doesn't mean you don't feel. It means you aren't controlled by your feelings. You become the observer, not the reactor. Buddhist practices for emotional mastery. Buddhism offers powerful tools for emotional mastery, particularly through meditation and mindfulness practices. These practices teach us to observe our thoughts and emotions without judgment, allowing us to cultivate a sense of inner peace that is not dependent on external circumstances. For example, in the Buddhist practice of loving-kindness meditation, metta, you focus on cultivating love and compassion for yourself and others. This practice helps to dissolve negative emotions like anger and resentment by replacing them with positive feelings. When we practice loving kindness, we begin to see others and ourselves through the lens of compassion rather than judgment. Through regular practice of mindfulness and meditation, we develop a sense of equanimity, the ability to remain calm and balanced, regardless of external circumstances. This is the ultimate form of emotional mastery. 5. The neuroscience of perception. Modern neuroscience supports what ancient philosophies like Buddhism have been teaching for centuries. Our perceptions shape our reality. The brain is incredibly plastic, meaning it can change and adapt over time based on our thoughts, habits, and experiences. This is where the concept of neuroplasticity comes in, the brain's ability to form new connections and pathways based on new experiences. Studies in cognitive psychology show that emotional reactions, particularly those driven by fear, stress, or anxiety, can create deeply ingrained neural pathways. The more we react automatically to these emotions, the stronger these pathways become, making it harder to change our responses over time. But the good news is, we can rewire our brains. By practicing mindfulness, cognitive reframing, and other emotional regulation techniques, we can weaken the automatic reactions and create new pathways for healthier responses. Just as you can train your body at the gym, you can train your brain to respond with greater resilience, calm, and clarity. In these sections, we've explored the idea that much of our emotional suffering comes from the illusion of control and a need for external validation. By practicing emotional mastery and understanding the power of perception, we can break free from the cycle of reactive behavior and choose a different path, one of inner peace, balance, and true emotional resilience. If we continue to reframe how we see the world, let go of our attachment to outcomes, and embrace mindfulness and meditation, we can begin to shift our reality. We can live a life of emotional freedom, unshaken by external forces. As we've seen in today's story, the real power isn't in controlling the world around you, but in mastering your perception of it. When you stop reacting to external events, you become untouchable. The world will keep changing, but you will remain calm, unshaken, and in control of your peace. So, the next time life throws a challenge your way, remember, it's not about what happens, but how you choose to respond. You have the power to control your reality by mastering yourself. If you found this video helpful, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share it with others who might benefit from these insights. Also, feel free to drop a comment below about what stood out to you or how you plan to implement today's lessons into your life. Your thoughts and engagement keep this channel alive and motivate me to create even more content that can guide you on your journey toward spiritual growth and emotional freedom. Stay tuned for the next video, where we'll dive even deeper into how to master your mind and live a life unshaken by the external world. Until next time, remember, you are the sky, and the storms that come your way are just passing clouds.